Rillaboom is coming to the 7-star raids as a Tera Normal boss, and I'm going to tell you guys the counters that I think you should be using for this particular raid boss. If this is your first time here on the channel, make sure you are subbed for more like this in the future, but let's get into it. So just a quick overview. Yes, 7-star Tera raid battle that is going to be happening next is Tera Normal Rillaboom, running from July 28th to July 30th, and then again August 4th through August 6th. Pretty cool stuff. I think everybody was expecting Rillaboom to pop up at some point. Really interesting. This was a touch tricky to build around, and let's get into exactly why that is. So Rillaboom was tricky to build around because of the Tera Normal typing, because, you know, automatically everybody's like, well, just bring a fighting type. Well, that doesn't exactly work when you consider the fact that Rillaboom gets acrobatics. That makes things a touch tricky for all the fighting types that you would use. Also, you know, a very popular strategy that we've had has been things like just going into you know, acid sprays and using special attackers, but there's not a whole lot of good special attacking fighting types. Like, it's just focus blast, so there's really not a whole lot of option in that regard. So it made things very, very interesting in terms of building around this particular raid boss. Now, there are a handful of different moves that this Pokemon could have. There's a couple different scenarios that I have considered. I've calced everything for 2 of the specific scenarios. I did a calc for the other scenario that some people are theorizing will happen, and all of these builds work fine into that particular set. I just don't foresee that set happening, which is why I didn't bother calcing it and showing it here in this video. So obviously the moves that this Pokemon could have are as follows. We've got Wood Hammer here. Obviously this thing is going to set Grassy Surge, which is going to allow it to throw off some really big Wood Hammers, something you really have to be afraid of. Stompy Tantrum is another potential move that this Pokemon gets. This Pokemon has access to a ton of really good moves, so you have to really be cautious about what you bring into this. It also gets access to Knockoff. It could run Drum Beating instead if they go for like a sound theme. Drum Beating could be the other option that's going to lower your target speed. This leaves some options available for things like Annihilate to really go off. So that's definitely an option as well. I'll have to run a calc on Annihilate because I did not include it in this video, but if it does run Drum Beating, Annihilate could be really good with Defiant, so that's just something to keep in the back of your head. But I foresee more Wood Hammer. Personally, I think Wood Hammer might be really, really solid for this particular Pokemon, or if they don't want the recoil damage, I could see it go either way. Regardless, like I mentioned, I calced for Wood Hammer, so if it uses Drum Beating, all these Pokemon will be fine regardless. But it just gets so many good moves. But I think this is just the initial thought. It has access to like Bulk Up, Swords Dance, a bunch of stuff like that. It even has access to things like Leech Seed, so maybe bringing something that can remove terrain might be a good idea. Things like that could be potentially be good, and I have a Pokemon that can do that. So that's definitely an option. But I have a hard time believing it's going to use something like Leech Seed and Grassy Surge. I feel like that would just be a ton of health return to the boss and be really, really annoying to deal with. But the other option I foresee is Facade, Flame Orb, and then like setup stuff with like Sword Stance or like Bulk Up. I could see that definitely being a possibility on this particular Pokemon. And with this one, I could see like Grassy Seed, right? Give it a little defensive boost and then go ahead and let it just run with acrobatics. I could definitely see that being the case. But I definitely foresee like a Facade set, like a ×2 Facade, and then just like a setup Rillaboom. Maybe this one actually does run Leech Seed. And then you have something like Swords Dance or Bulk Up on this as well. And this thing just goes for big hits because I don't foresee them doing a whole lot else, you know, with physical attacks if they do go for the Facade set. The other thing I have been seeing people talk about is Boom Burst. Which makes sense when you think about Rillaboom in the sense that this is a, you know, drumming Pokemon. It uses sound moves. It's a special attack stat is just really bad. It's really bad. So I just have a hard time believing that this is actually the route that they would go for this particular set. Like I mentioned, I did calc for Boom Burst, and all of the Pokemon that I have here play fine into Boom Burst, play very effectively into Boom Burst. There's only one, and I'll bring it up when I get to that particular Pokemon, that doesn't play fantastically into Boom Burst, but the rest of them do just fine. So the first Pokemon on my list is Corviknight. I think Corviknight is fantastic because it covers for a lot of the options that Rillaboom can carry. It covers for the ground type with Stomping Tantrum. It doesn't take Drain Punches that bad. It can take a hit from like a Wood Hammer or a Drum Beating very effectively, and it is not very effective if it uses like Facade or Boom Burst into this particular Pokemon. So you're running Grassy Seed here. You can run Mirror Armor if it is running like Drum Beating or something. it's going to lower the speed on the Rillaboom instead. So that's kind of nice. You have access to Roost. You have access to Taunt to stop any of those setup moves. You can also throw like Reflector, Light Screen on this thing, just depending on what happens. If this is running like Boom Burst, just throw Light Screen on this and it'll be just fine. Solid option here, because you can just basically set up iron defenses. Grassy Seed is going to pop immediately, giving you that boost. You only need to set up one iron defense and you can start rolling. I'll show the calc here. Let me pull it up on my screen so I can see it. So the calc that I have here is Corviknight with 3 defense. This is after you've already procced your Grassy Seed and used an iron defense. This is a burnt set with Facade on it. Facade's only going to be doing 10% damage to you, and you're going to be doing 155% damage with your body presses in this scenario. So it's just a very powerful Pokemon in terms of dealing with Rillaboom. And even if I took off the burn, the damages are negligible, especially with access to Roost and Heal Chair, that you really don't have to worry about it. So I think that Corviknight is one of the best options that you can bring to this potential raid. This isn't even with a Reflect Up if you do decide to roll with a screen instead of Taunt. Next up, I have Hisuian Goodra, and I think this one's interesting because there are some potential moves that are problematic for Goodra. If you consider the fact that, you know, Rillaboom does get access to Drain Punch, does get access to Stomping Tantrum. It does have some potential weaknesses. However, it's just so incredibly bulky that it can take those hits and not have to worry about it too much. So the idea with this Pokemon is, again, you're running Grassy Seed here. You have access to Sap Sipper, immediately shutting down Drum Beating or Wood Hammer, which puts you in a really positive position. It's also going to raise your attack stat, but then also you have the ability to have Acid Armor and Body Press do the same thing that Corviknight did, but this can be a bit more supportive with the form of Chilling Water here, so you can lower the attack stat of the Rillaboom, which is fairly nice, but then also have access to Life Dew, which is really solid as well. So having those options are really nice for this particular Pokemon. You have the ability to lower it and also heal your team up and just be a bulky menace, and then eventually when you do gain enough moves, you can Terra Dragon to get rid of your weaknesses and put you in a really positive position. I think that Hisuian Goodra is really solid. Hisuian Goodra with Burn applied, Facade is only going to be doing 18.9% of your health. This is with the defense boost from Grassy Seed already applied, which is really nice. But then even if you look at things like Stomping Tantrum or Drain Punch off the bat with +1 defense, you're only taking 28% damage from both of those moves, even though they are super effective, which is incredibly solid. This is with no attack stat drops on Rillaboom from Chilling Water. So as you apply more Chilling Water, this is going to get weaker and weaker, allowing your team to just be able to kind of mitigate this Pokemon and deal with it more effectively. I think that Hisuian Goodra, for this reason, being able to take those hits regardless of the super effective damage, is really nice, allowing you to just kind of power through this raid. And I forgot to mention at the start, all of these are calced for defense. If this does run Boom Burst, just slightly put more into special defense on a lot of these Pokemon and you'll be fine. With Goodra, I don't think you necessarily have to because your special defense is so high, but if you, for other Pokemon in this, you can just roll into more special defense and you'll be fine. So we also have Impish Nature on the majority of these Pokemon because you're just doing so much more defensive, you're getting so much more out of your defensive stats from those particular boosts. So really nice in that regard. Next up, we have Abomasnow, and I think Abomasnow is actually kind of nice because you can set up Aura Veil and have Snow off the rip, which is really solid. Also, you have access to Grassy Surge Giga Drains to be able to heal yourself back up. I think this is a really solid supporter Pokemon because you do also have access to Chilling Water, giving you the ability to just kind of sit in front of Rillaboom with your Aura Veil up, especially with the defense boost that you get from the snow. You're not really taking that much damage from Rillaboom at all. I know Rillaboom has some stuff like Drain Punch and Acrobatics that could be very good into this particular Pokemon, but you're able to eat those hits because of the fact that you have access to Aura Veil and the snow. So that's really solid, and the boosted Giga Drains are going to be nice for getting that health back and letting this Pokemon thrive. So I think for that reason, Abomasnow is actually a fairly solid bring. Now, this is a burnt calc that I have here, and Facade is only going to be doing 23% of your health with the Snow up and Reflect up. So you're going to be able to eat those hits very effectively and not do not take a whole bunch of damage, and this is without a Chilling Water drop applied to the Rillaboom, so it puts you in a really positive position into this scenario. And then without the burn, if you look at moves like Wood Hammer is only doing 11%, 15% from Drain Punch with the Snow and Reflect up. You have Knockoff not doing a whole lot. You have Stomping Tantrum not doing a whole lot. Like, this Pokemon just eats the hits fairly effectively. Your biggest concern, honestly, with Abomasnow is a turn 1 acrobatics. It does roughly 42 to 50% of your health, but only on turn 1, because after turn 1 you have already set reflect, and then after that subsequent turns, acrobatics is only going to be doing up to 25% of your health. So this puts you in a really strong position with this particular Pokemon, allowing you to just kind of roll. I didn't throw up the calcs for this, I just have them here on my side screen, but it's very solid for this particular Pokemon. Now, Enamorus is the Pokemon that does play fairly poorly into Boom Burst. This is the Pokemon that I mentioned earlier that could pose potential problems if Boom Burst does become the way that they roll. So take that into account. If they do opt for Boom Burst on Rillaboom, maybe don't bring Enamorus into this particular raid. However, if they go for either the, standard drum beating or attack set that does not have Facade, or even the Facade set, this Pokemon does very well into this particular raid. So basically, you're just running Contrary. You can run Iron Defense for the opportunity to boost that defense and take even more hits. And you have access to Taunt on this, allowing it to not set up if it does have a setup move. But basically, you're just going to be using Contrary to set Superpower and just spam Superpower over and over and boost your attack stat every turn. And you have Shell Bell on here to increase the amount of health that you're getting back from the amount of damage that you're doing. Very solid option into this particular raid. So the first calc I have here are the burnt effects. Facade's only going to be doing 34 to 43%. 40.3% damage to Enamorus, and this is before you even get a superpower off. So the next turn you will already have by the time that they're able to actually effectively use Facade, you're going to have +1 defense and +1 attack, which is going to lower that dramatically, the amount of damage that Facade is doing, which puts you in a really positive position. But then if I take the burn off, Woodhammer is only doing 17%, Drain Punch is doing minimal damage, and Acrobatics is only doing up to 21%. So Enamorus is a really solid bring into this particular raid. Next up, we have Iron Hands for all you Iron Hands lovers out there. And I think that a lot of people might be like, why bring Iron Hands? But Iron Hands actually plays fairly effectively into this. Now, I don't think you should be belly drumming in this scenario. I think belly drum is a waste of your time. I think, honestly, just roll with Swords Dance, maybe throw Focus Energy on there, and just Drain Punch. You're going to be doing normal Iron Hands things, and you're just going to be going in and smacking this as hard as possible with Drain Punch and getting all that health back, and this Pokemon just won't go down. And as you can see, this Iron Hands is running a Grassy Seed to maximize the amount of defense that you have, max HP, max defense, so you're going to be able to take those hits even more effectively, which is super nice. So with the burn, Iron Hands is only going to be taking 10.7 to 12.8% from a Facade with +1 defense and max HP, max defense. So it's super strong into this particular raid. But then also, if you consider the fact that after you remove the burn, you're only taking 11.1% from a Woodhammer, 9.3% from a Stomping Tantrum. Like, this Pokemon just eats up the just absolutely eats up any of the attacks that this Pokemon throws your way. Puts you in a really strong position. The final Pokemon I want to talk about is Grimmsnarl. I think Grimmsnarl is incredibly strong into this particular setup. You have access to both screens if this is a Boom Burst potential setup. You also have Reflect, to minimize the amount of physical damage that you're taking. Honestly, if this runs Boom Burst, just take Taunt off and throw Light Screen on there instead. You have access to Chilling Water, and you also have access to Drain Punch, making this a very solid bring. Obviously, you're running Light Clay on this thing, and you're just going to be going in and hitting this thing after you hit a couple Chilling Waters. So you're basically just supporting the team with this. You're going to be cheering a lot doing that, but this doesn't take a ton of damage from Rillaboom, which makes it a solid bring. So with no burn applied, Grimm is going to be able to take a Woodhammer pretty effectively, Drain Punch very effectively. Acrobatics is going to be the big hitter here, but you're able to eat that fairly well as well. And with the burn and a Reflect up, you're only going to be taking 34.2% from a Facade, which puts you in a really strong position with this particular Pokemon. Obviously, I ran the calcs on Play Rough as well because it does get stabbed. Play Rough is actually going to be doing less damage than Drain Punch would in this scenario, so Drain Punch is just better because you're going to be able to recover so much more health. So those are the 6 Pokemon that I feel are very solid into this particular raid. I find that special attackers just really aren't worth it because of the fact that, you can't hit it for super effective damage as effectively. Obviously, there are still scenarios where you could just use acid spray over and over like we have in the past and hit it for not super effective, but hit it for really strong special attacks. But I just think that these Pokemon all handle the attacks that Rillaboom has very well, and you don't necessarily have to rely on your teammates as heavily, which I think is separate from what we've had in the past. I think that having access to these particular Pokemon is going to put you in a really strong position to be able to handle this raid very well. There's a lot of recovery on a lot of these Pokemon. If looking at like Corviknight with Roost, looking at Life Dew with Goodra, looking at Drain Punch on Grimmsnarl and with Iron Hands, as well as Enamorus with the Shell Bell, Giga Drain here. There's just so much recovery on these particular Pokemon, allowing these to survive that much longer in this raid. I think that these are the really solid options because of the particular Tera typing that Rillaboom is. And again, all of these handle fairly well into Boom Burst. Enamorus has a little bit more of a problem with that, but you can just roll more into the special defensive category if it is a more Boom Burst oriented Pokemon, and you'll be able to take those hits even better. So that's something you need to consider. All of these Pokemon, for the most part, with the exception of Grimmsnarl and Iron Hands, actually with the exception of only Grimmsnarl, are taking those Wood Hammers very effectively because they're all resisted. So all of these Pokemon just eat those particular grass type attacks up. So Grassy Surge is not something that you really have to worry about on these Pokemon. And you're actually using Grassy Surge to your advantage with a lot of these with the Grassy Seed. So it puts you in a really positive position. So honestly, I think these Pokemon are all going to be very, very solid, and I highly recommend you bring these to the raid. I'm going to try and host some of these raids. I haven't hosted them in a while, but I really do want to try and host some of these raids on a live stream or something if I have the weekend off work. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Leave a comment below on what you plan to bring to Rillaboom. But that is going to be it. If you enjoyed the video at any point, leave a like and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Also, check out the Discord. People over there hanging out, playing Pokemon all the time. And if you want to see anything else from me, check out any of the videos that you see here on screen. But until next time, peace.